We have about 4 diversions on the ranch where our water rights taken out and used for irrigation. And of course we use water for stock water for the cattle. And then one of the bigger assets is the water just for the fishing, for recreation. We have a group that pays a trespass fee to use our land, and then we have a outfitting and guide business in Peekaboo at our store that also uses the water. And then we have duck hunting that uses the water. So it's real important. You know, starting with the land use, which was determined by the zoning, one of the tenets of the comprehensive plan, a group of us did that plan, and the preservation of agriculture was one of the tenets, and the commercial in the cities. And so the land use determined a lot of it to keep it in agriculture, and then having the creek through it, and the fishing, and then the wildlife. We have a lot of elk and deer and birds and hunting. And when you have the population that you have from Bellevue up, they have to have some place to play, and this is close, so they come down here. But we have people come from all over the world that come here. I have fishing members from France, England, and they might only come and fish for a week, but it's so special. That week makes it worth it to them. You come down here in the morning about 6:30, and it'll be about as good as it gets. But it's really a special area, I think, because of the beauty. And you stick around here another hour or two, and the mountains all change color, and sunsets and the sunrises are all special. We're pretty fortunate. In 1993, I gave an easement to the Nature Conservancy, so there'll be no development from here to that mountain down there. And a lot of the neighbors now have done the same. So it's going to stay the way it is. There aren't many places like that aren't developing, you know. The pond was becoming just a heat sink. It's about 6-7 acres, and the water in it was only about a foot deep, and the weeds were taken over. So I don't even think I got a permit the first year. I started excavating the pond, and I made an island right behind us. Here is an island. It's made out of the silt, and it was so successful that I started on the rest of the pond. Well, I'd actually jumped down here to the creek, and I'm a graduate engineer, so I know enough to be dangerous. And the velocity of the creek is what's important to carry the silt through the system. And prior to our ownership, this was a dairy cow ranch, and the banks had been knocked down by the cattle and by the muskrats and the beavers, and the creek had become very, very wide. So there was no velocity to the creek. It just barely moved through and dropped any load of silt that it had. About once every 4 or 5 years, we get an event where we have a flow of water that's significant. The last one was actually 206, where in February you'll have, say, a foot of snow on the flats, and you'll get a rain on frozen ground, and that water will all flow into the creek and create a flood, and that flood will help scour the silt. So it's important to have a stream bed that is narrow enough that you get enough force and velocity to scour that silt out. And it'd become, we'd lost that channel of the creek. So I started narrowing the channel down. Every year I'd do about 500 or 600 feet, starting in about 2000, and over a period of, now it is 15 years, we're down to the point of that mountain, and it isn't conducive to narrow it. The rest of the creek down there, it needs dredge. So last year I dredged a 1/4 mile of it, and I'm going to do several more 1/4 miles, and that'll get us down to the highway. But it's the membership that uses the creek up here has been very generous and donate money, and then my money and my equipment, and we're getting it done. And then 3 years ago I completed the work in the pond, and along with the Nature Conservancy, they did their section from the bridge up, and I dredged this out, excavated it out so it's 4 to 8 feet deep, and build a new dam that we can manage to take the cold water off the bottom of the pond and put it into the creek instead of putting the hot water over the top. And that's been very successful. Where you work with water all your life, you kind of know what you need to do and how to do it. But I had some help from Brockway Engineering, and then the agencies, they have to look it all over and give you their comments. But the bureaucracy of it is just about enough to make you not want to do it. But I think I have a pretty good name with the bureaucracy, so it's getting a little easier. But conserving water is one of our main focuses, and that's why you see so many sprinklers, because they conserve the water so well, and you can manage it so much better. And we use the newest technology to make the water as efficient as we can, and we become more and more efficient every year and use less and less water. Everybody does, or you aren't going to be in the farming business very long. 3 times a week there's a man comes around and measures the water and adjusts the head gates. The head gates are locked, and you don't dare touch them. Yeah. With the new technology now, you can have sensors out in your field that can report back to you wireless, and we have them in all our fields, and my son monitors them as to what depth the water is in the soil, so we don't waste any. Yeah. And plus the power bill to pressurize this water, I pay about $300,000 a year for electricity, and so you aren't going to waste any power or any pressure or any water. It's just too expensive. We're very fortunate. We have some landowners that, even though they have a ranch, they aren't really ranchers, but they really care for the land and the water, and very environmentally conscious. And there aren't many owners on Silver Creek. That's the other thing that we're fortunate to have. But until really I started doing this work, the creek was kind of an aggravation, because there's nothing square about it. It goes right through the property and makes the irrigation hard, makes the farming hard. And it wasn't until about the 80s, early 80s, that people started thinking about how valuable the creek was and started, really starting to take care of it. There are a few people who still abuse it, but most of the owners are very aware of how important it is.